My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my ranking of Jean-Pierre Jeunet filmography from worst to best. And before this marathon, I was not familiar with him as a director at all. And I have to say, he does have his own unique style. And he does have his own offbeat tone. Whether it works for me or not is an entirely different issue, but he is a singular voice. His movies also tend to have things in common, like this group of lovable, quirky side characters, and yeah, so I'm gonna be honest, so I was not a fan of this marathon. I thought it was a lot more boring than I was expecting, but let's begin with his worst movie, and it's Big Bug. This is a movie I watched a month ago, and I remember almost nothing about it. It has zero staying power. The only thing I can say is that I thought this movie was very boring, and it's a hideous movie to look at. Everything looks so artificial and fake, and I just find it to be a very difficult movie to watch. His second worst movie is the only one I didn't review, and it's A Very Long Engagement. I know this one got great reviews, but a few years ago I watched it and I thought it was so boring and it did absolutely nothing for me, and I didn't want to rewatch it for this marathon, so I didn't, and I remember nothing about it. I just remember it was a very yellow movie, and that's it. That's why it's his second worst. I always say the worst thing a movie can be is generic or forgettable. If a movie leaves no impression at all, that is terrible. His third worst movie is Micmacs, and this was actually the last Jean-Pierre Jeunet movie I watched, and it just got to a point where I'm like, I've seen this movie already from him. There's just nothing new being done. It's the same style, the same kind of storytelling, and I just found it to be very unengaging. I found it to be boring, and even though there is some artistic merit to this movie, I was just simply tired of his style by this point. I just thought it offered nothing new whatsoever. His fourth worst movie, and this one hurts. It's The City of Lost Children, and if I'm being honest, this movie is the reason why I did this marathon in the first place. I've owned this movie for years, and I've always wanted to watch it, so this was my excuse, and look, the movie's got artistic merit, no doubt. It is a singular voice. It is weird and out there, but it's also just inaccessible. I could never get on this movie's wavelengths, and I just found myself at a distance the entire time. I never cared about anything going on, and I just found it to be very boring. Something like Edward Scissorhands has a weird out there style, but that movie has a very accessible story and emotion to care about, and I just feel like Jean-Pierre Jeunet's movies lack that heart, lack that soul. So that's why this movie is pretty far down the list. But then we go into the movies where I do like them, and his fourth best is Delicatessen. Now, I heard great things about this movie, and it's fine. This was the first Jean-Pierre Jeunet movie I watched, and it's definitely got his signature style, it's definitely got his quirky side characters, and I think it does fine enough. The cinematography and the sound in this movie is great. There's a few particular moments that really stood out. And it's just this offbeat movie that I found interesting at first watch. I feel like if this was the last movie of his I watched, I wouldn't be so kind to it, but at this point, it was something new to me. My biggest issue, though, is that it's very inaccessible once again. I feel like I'm being kept at a distance. The main romance never works. I never liked the main character, and I just found it to be kind of boring, especially in the last act. So it's fine. I'd never watch it again. Then we go on to his third best, and it's the young and prestigious T.S. Spivet. And this is a movie that nobody talks about, but I actually kind of liked it. I don't know if I'd go out of my way to watch it again. I don't think I'd buy it. But this was still a very charming, heartfelt movie. I love the musical score. It enhanced every scene it was present in. And there was some real nice grounded emotion about this boy who hasn't properly grieved and grasped what happened to his brother. And yeah, like you still got the quirky side characters. The plot itself is kind of blah, but there was definitely some good aspects to it. And I think it's much more entertaining than most of his filmography. But then we go into his top two movies, which are easily his best, and people might disagree with my placements here, but it's my list, so eat shit. My second favorite Jean-Pierre Jeunet movie is Amélie. I loved this movie. It is the quirky side characters and this unique style perfected. This is the movie that Jean-Pierre Jeunet was born to make. It is his movie through and through, and he just nails it. I thought the humor really landed and it made me laugh a few times. The offbeat tone works delightfully. It's very charming, it can be heartfelt, and I just thought the entire cast did a great job. Audrey Tautou is absolutely wonderful, and the rest of the supporting cast really stands out. The filmmaking is great, it's filled with style and personality, and this is just, the script was just really strong here, and I just found it to be a very endearing, entertaining movie, so that's why it's my second favorite. Well, Gavin, what's your first favorite then? Look, if you know me, you know I like my horror movies. I like my movies with monsters, I like slimy movies, disgusting movies, and that's what I got in Alien Resurrection, which is criminally underrated. Yes, the French director's best movie is a Hollywood production, but man, I do not get the hate this movie gets. I think everyone is crazy, because I love this. I really do. Like, it's not as good as Alien or Aliens, but man, I just had a blast watching it. And I think Jean-Pierre Jeunet's style works really well with a script he didn't write. So he's going out of his way to make this movie as interesting as possible, and boy is it ever. The movie looks fantastic. I love the visuals. I love the practical effects. It's a very slimy and disgusting and gross movie. I think the underwater scene is great. I love the lab scene where you see the terrible experiment. I think the body horror is really well done. And I think the final death in this movie of the baby is one of the most memorable moments in a movie ever. Like, it starts off being really gross and disgusting, and then it becomes so over the top that you can't help but laugh, and then just goes on to the point where you just feel sad for this creature, and I thought it was such an effective final note. I really like the cast. I think everyone does a good job, whether it's Sigourney Weaver or Winona Ryder or anyone else. And I do like the entire aspect of Ripley being a clone here. It works because this movie is about experimentation and the psychological elements of that, so it feels right at home, and it's just a very entertaining movie. It's a great evolution of this franchise. I think it's awesome and gross and memorable, and I have so much fun watching it. I don't get the hate. I really don't. So, that's why it's my favorite Jean-Pierre Jeunet movie, but what's your ranking of his filmography? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, stay tuned for more videos soon, and Gavin out.